Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for joining us today for building positive workspaces and how to be a change maker at work. And it's so great to have all of you with us. And I hope that this gathering today is a bright spot in what is the gloominess going outside of our windows today. So thank you for being with us. We intentionally created the Changemaker event series for the month of September to recognize that despite this moment in time of unprecedented challenges, there is always space for gratitude. So I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for supporting the work of 10,000 Degrees and for generously supporting opportunities for our students. None of what we do, none of the work at 10,000 Degrees would be possible without you. Thank you. You are all our change makers, and together we are creating a much better future. During this month of September, we hope you'll join us and reflect upon a change maker in your life. Somebody who believed in you, somebody who helped pave the path for you with your career and your education, and somebody who gave you opportunities. Last week, you met 10,000 Degrees students and alumni, some of our change makers of today and tomorrow. And we have thousands of students in our pipeline. And today we have an amazing panel of professionals who are change makers in the workspace, leading to become and to help their workspaces become a much more equitable and inclusive environment. Our event series will actually culminate on September 24th, where we'll come together for our San Francisco Changemakers virtual celebration and celebrate all of you for being change makers. Our mission at 10,000 Degrees is all about supporting students from low-income backgrounds to achieve their college degree so that they can go on to positively impact their communities and the world. And today we are serving more than 12,000 students and families in 7 Bay Area counties, and we're supporting more than 2,200 students in college. We are providing a comprehensive wraparound model that is providing all of the college and financial aid counseling, the college matching, the near-peer coaching, the scholarships, and the financial aid management. And today, our students who start at the 4-year are graduating at 80% plus as compared to the national average of a 54%. Our students who start at community college are going on to get their 4-year degree at 3 times the national average. And our students are graduating with 85% less loan debt. And we have so many more students that we're trying to help. But the current times have certainly stacked up the odds. We know that our students and our families are being disproportionately impacted by COVID and the deeply prevalent racial injustices. And right now our students and alumni are doing everything they possibly can to stay connected and engaged with their education, pursuing their job search and their career goals, all while trying to give back to the next generation. And they give us all an abundance of hope for a better future. So throughout today, you will have an opportunity to support our work so that we can support more students, because they need us now more than ever before, and we're going to be here for them. So if you want to be a 10,000 Degrees change maker, and if you already haven't done so, you can make a contribution today. You can even honor one of the change makers in your own life. And you can text change to 24365. At any time during this event and beyond, you can text change to 24365. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Fede de Veros Walton, who is our Director of Government and Community Relations here at 10,000 Degrees. And she will introduce our panelists and moderate the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for kicking us off today, and thank you for giving us the space to really think about what's happening outside of our windows and what's happening outside of, where we are. Today has been tough for many of us, and know for the people joining us at work and at home that we're keeping our fire displaced neighbors in our thoughts as we traverse these really difficult times. And I also want to thank all of you for being so generous with your time this afternoon and spending it with us, learning a little bit about our alumni and meeting some of our panelists, and of course, supporting our work. Today's session was really inspired by the feedback and that we received from our recent alumni. 2 of them are joining us today, about their transition from their academic life into their professional life. We want all of you to leave this session having learned about their experience, what they expect, what they want to learn, and what they want to get out of their professional lives, and also learn about some of the approaches that some of our corporate partners have. And I can say this, that all of our panelists share a passion for creating inclusive workspaces, and I am so excited to have our conversation today. We encourage all of you to submit questions either to our whole panel. You will see the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit questions throughout the session. We can either weave them into the conversation, and we will also set aside some time at the end to answer your questions. And so to begin, each of our panelists will take a moment to introduce themselves. And I would like to kick it off to Ms. Anna Edwin from TPG. Anna.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? Wonderful. So hi, everybody. My name is Anna Edwin. I'm the Global Head of Talent Development at TPG. And what that means is I'm responsible for our talent and performance management strategy, as well as all of our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. I'm actually an alum of a program called Prep for Prep, which is based on the East Coast of New York. And so the 10,000 Degrees mission has a very, very special place in my heart because I know how transformational it can be for somebody in their careers and for their family and their personal lives and their communities. So I'm excited to be here today, and I'm excited to be on the panel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. So I work at LinkedIn in customer marketing. And what that means is I work across all of our talent solutions products. So anything that helps employers find candidates for their jobs and working on product launches. In addition to my day job, I also am the Bay Area Regional Lead for Hispanics of LinkedIn Alliance, which is an employee resource group dedicated to supporting the Latinx community and ensuring they can be successful at work. Before LinkedIn, I was very deeply involved in community organizing as a community organizer for 5 years. I worked in the public sector and the private sector, and I'm just really excited to be bringing some of that learning and knowledge to you all today. So thanks so much.
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. I'm Stephanie. I am a recent grad from UC Santa Barbara, majored in communication and sociology. I'm also a 10,000 Degrees alumni as well. I'm super passionate about understanding people and story, and in the past that kind of took me to my marketing and communications roles in government, nonprofit, healthcare, and tech.
Hi, my name is Thomas Sexton. I work as a senior director on LinkedIn's diversity, inclusion, and belonging team. And my team and I are focused on how do we build a more diverse and inclusive LinkedIn. And specifically, we think about how can we attract talent from groups that are underrepresented within the organization today? How can we retain and develop folks within the organization? And how do we create an environment at LinkedIn that is inclusive for people from all different backgrounds? Before that, I actually worked for many years in the marketing team, worked closely with Daniela, actually, and spent some time in strategy consulting and in the nonprofit sector before that as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Vargas. I'm a recent UC Davis graduate and also a 10,000 Degrees alumni. I am interested in behavioral health, autism research, and public health. Currently, I am helping the distance learning program for the city of Santa Rosa because I love working with kids, and that's something that I'm looking forward to working with more in the future. Nice to meet everyone.
Good afternoon. My name is Deirdre Thompson. I'm the VP of Member Experience here at Redwood Credit Union. And my primary responsibility is to represent the voice of the member in everything that we do. And so the diverse communities that we serve make this a really exciting and engaging experience for me, and I appreciate being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Vasquez, the Community and Social Responsibility Manager at Bank of San Francisco. I am a career banker coming up on 25 years now. And my role with the Bank of San Francisco is to ensure that we are doing right for the community, understanding the needs through products and services, as well as working with our executive management team and understanding how we can change policy and procedure at the bank to help align our services more with the community, working along with nonprofits, also working with government organizations, as well as civic engagement organizations. And so we often work through our CRA initiatives, as well as aligning our diversity and inclusion initiatives as well to ensure that we are a bank that is representing the community as a whole and where we live in. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you all. As you can tell, we are so excited to have this conversation with all of you today. It'll promise to be exciting. I'll keep reminding our audience to submit questions. We'll be touching on themes around DEI in the workplace, mentoring, coaching, and sponsoring this new generation of professionals. We'll feature some of the best practices, and we'll be looking ahead at, what are our corporate partners doing to kind of meet the moment. So if you have any questions on anything that comes up, feel free to submit them throughout our conversation and we'll make sure to integrate them. So we'll kick it off with this theme of change makers. I think, a lot of us have had a person who has played such a huge role in our professional, academic, personal paths. And I'd like to invite you to kind of reflect on what is a change maker to you, and is there a change maker in your life that you would like to highlight with us today? And I'd actually like to kick it off with our alumni. And Stephanie, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to start, and I'll kick it off to you, Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm really happy to share. So to define change maker to me, I think it's someone who literally takes action, performs action, inspires others, and leaves things different than the way they came into it. For me, I would say Marcy, who was a director of content marketing at McKesson, was the change maker in my life. So I entered McKesson as a corporate communications intern. And prior to McKesson, I've held multiple internships. I always worked closely with my assigned manager and my assigned team, never really beyond that. At McKesson, I shared that I was interested in social media. Marcy paid attention to that, and she started inviting me to all her team meetings ever since then. She took the action to actually set up a one-on-one with me, an informational call, get to know who I am as a person. And over a month's time, I actually had the chance to even dig in a new project that I wasn't necessarily hired for, but very interested in. And it didn't stop at McKesson. She checked in with me throughout post-McKesson, asked me what I'm interested in, recommended that I try a career in tech because tech hires comms and marketing people too. And I didn't know that. I didn't know tech needed people like me. But because of her encouragement and her taking the action to just see some kind of potential in me, took me to, that courage to apply for marketing roles outside of, healthcare and government that I was used to. I somehow landed an internship at Autodesk the past summer because of her just believing in me. So to me, Marcy is a change maker, and I think it's someone who literally takes action and changes, people different than the way they first met them. And I'm so glad to really share that experience with you all today. She is awesome. We still talk today.
Wow, well, shout out. Oh my God, that's so incredible. Jennifer, is there a change maker in your life that you'd like to chat with us about, or what's a change maker to you?
Hi, so yes, there is a specific change maker that has been there for me actually my whole life. It's my older sister. She right now is the Associate Director of Nursing for Santa Rosa Community Health. And for me, she's been a change maker because despite her being undocumented for the majority of her time in the US, she still pursued a career in healthcare, and she was able to overcome any of the obstacles that came her way. She was able to graduate from college, and then from there she moved up, networked with a bunch of people despite her not knowing much about the college process. And right now in the community, she is a part of different like teams and networks. And for me, she's been a change maker because she continues to inspire young Latinx women. And in her team, she manages a bunch of nurses that are also Latinas and also women of color. And for me, that's amazing because not a lot of women of color are in like director positions. And I like seeing that because it motivates me to do better. And I am considering a career in healthcare as well. So for me, it's just seeing her going above and beyond helping people in the community, especially those that are underrepresented, is just great because I want to do the same thing. And she just helps me to continue pursuing my goals and to continue staying positive despite the current pandemic.
So it sounds like your sister inspired you to go into the public health field. So it sounds like your sister had a huge influence in, you know, where you want to pursue kind of your professional and academic path. Yeah, great. Anna, I'd like to, you know, kick it off to you. What's a change maker to you? And has there been someone in your life that you want to share with us today?
Sure. So I'm probably going to get in trouble for this because there are quite a few who have been fantastic in my life, and I have different reasons to thank them for different things. But for me, the definition of a change maker is somebody that kind of blazes a trail for themselves and makes sure to take those who are behind them with them so that they can hopefully change different things and not the same, not feel like they have to carve necessarily the same exact route because they've done that work for you. So it's a little bit easier for you. I'm really privileged and lucky that I actually get to work for my change maker. Her name is Anilu Vasquez-Uvari. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer and a partner at TPG. And we've kind of moved through the ranks of, you know, mentor, coach, sponsor for the last, I'd say 14 years. And she's been everything from a friend to somebody who kicks me forward when I need it in a gentle and loving way. And so I'm extremely appreciative for the influence that she's had in just my personal and professional life over the last decade.
Thank you for sharing that. It's incredible how you bump into people in your workplace and they end up becoming such a huge part of your life. Deirdre, would you like to share with us?
Sure. So this was a really interesting conversation to me because I hadn't thought about this in a long time. And so when I think back about change makers for me, there are a few, much like Anna, I have more than one. But the one who had the lasting impact was the one that caused me to really focus and think about my gifts and sort of assess those and make decisions about how I wanted to move forward. His name is Ed Hawthorne. He's since left financial services, but I would say that it was impactful to me, as are all change makers, because they cause us to look inward, right, and assess our gifts and be really realistic and honest about the gifts that each of us have and can bring, right, to not look at what everybody else is doing, but what is uniquely ours.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll kick it off to Victor.
Thank you. First, when I think about a change maker, I think of someone that adds intellectual capital. You know, someone that helps you overcome challenges, not weaknesses, because I don't like using that term, but really a challenge, an opportunity, if you will. And it's someone that helps you within your career, your education, your hobbies, your passions, whatever it may be. And I think back to one specific individual who's no longer with us by the name of Peter Quesada. And Peter is a musician all his life. And I was a young musician, and at the age of 14, he saw me waiting with other musicians as we left the conservatory. It was a service, it was a program that existed near my house, and I was heavily involved in music to keep me out of the streets. And he saw me and he asked me, oh, you're a musician, obviously you have your instrument, and would you be interested in performing with us at a concert that we're gonna host? This was right after the LA riots, and it was gonna be a free concert at MacArthur Park. And I said to him, sure. Well, it doesn't pay anything, but at that point I was like, you know, what experience I can gain from this would be great. And what I saw, what I learned from Peter was that he went out into the community searching young musicians from all backgrounds and in the low to moderate income community, and really trying to pair them up with musicians from the Hollywood Bowl, from the LA Philharmonic, students at USC or UCLA, and really help with those passions and really bring them together. And so I think of that, and we stayed in contact for many years up until his very last days. And I can always say that that is someone there that really, really helped me out. And I see as a change maker because it was just in his heart. It's who he was.
Wow. And you talk a little bit about a community leader and someone that was really deeply involved in their communities. Daniela, your background is so interesting because you kind of put those two together. Daniela, I'll kick it off to you, a change maker, and what's a change maker to you?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry about that, guys. A change maker to me is somebody who opens your mind to a different perspective, someone who challenges you to think in ways for yourself and for others that you may not have thought before. And so for me, the person that came to mind is somebody who I actually don't really speak often about, but it was somebody who I worked for. His name was Ori, and he was the co-founder for a startup I worked at once I immediately left public policy. And I took a job, I took this job at his company because, we were focused on digital mortgage, making it more accessible and easy for people in the Bay Area to buy a home, which for those of you who've tried to go through that process, it's really hard. And I came to a crossroads in my career where I wasn't feeling challenged. I was feeling like I was missing this inspiration and this passion I had for social justice and community organizing. And I had a job come across be offered to me, and I decided to turn it down. And I was like in this whole emotional, like, oh my gosh, this was the wrong decision. That was my dream job. Why am I doing this? But I talked to Ori, and I was just very honest, like, hey, I'm confused as to what I should do. What do you, I want to stay here, but I also am not sure if it's the right fit. And instead of, focusing on, well, the best thing for the business or the best thing, for Syndio, it was, Danielle, I wanted to give you what the best thing is for you. And I think you should actually talk to a coach. And so he connected me with a professional coach that he used to give him advice on, anything workplace related. And my family doesn't have a lot of experience in the professional corporate world. And this has actually become an invaluable resource for me to know that I have somebody I can go to who is outside of my family, who is outside of my company, who I can lean on for how do I navigate my experiences as a woman of color in tech, as a woman of color who might struggle with some of these things. So he was a change maker for me because he helped me realize I can really carve my own path and I don't need to do it alone. So I have a lot of thanks for him. He probably doesn't realize that had a big impact on me. So I'll have to tell him one day.
Well, maybe we'll share this video. This is being recorded, and you can, send him a link to our YouTube page. Before I kick it off to Thomas, I just want to encourage folks in the audience to submit their questions, either to one of our panelists or about a topic. Thomas, you have quite an interesting career path as well. You kind of started in kind of international work, and now you're at LinkedIn. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on what is a change maker to you, and is there someone that you'd like to share about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love hearing these stories, by the way, of these inspiring folks. So I can share an example of a change maker in more of an institutional setting. And so as I think about what it means to be a change maker, I think about people that have a combination of an ability to recognize when a change needs to be made in the first place, and then also an ability to think about what strategies can I put in place to actually implement a change in that environment. And a lot of people have one or the other, and I think the really powerful change makers can actually do both. And so I'm thinking of a person at LinkedIn, a longtime executive who had been at the organization since its very early days and had built a very large team. And this person took a lot of pride in the culture that he had created within his organization. And there was a moment when a couple of folks came up to him and said, do you realize that your leadership team, the vast majority of the people on your leadership team are men? And that became a real inflection point for this leader. And I think a lot of people have a tendency to retreat into defensiveness. And his approach was to recognize that there actually is a problem here and there's a change that needs to be made. Not only that, but it was a problem of his own making. And so his approach was to say, okay, let me communicate to my organization that at this point was thousands of people and say, this organization that I built, that we built together, I'm very proud of it. There's a lot of great things about it, but there are problems in it as well. And these problems are actually creating barriers to us to be able to be successful as an organization and as a company. And then he said, so we're going to treat this like any other business problem that we would come across as an organization. We're going to put resources against it. We're going to put money and we're going to put people against it. We're going to develop a set of strategies and we're going to track our success against those strategies. And as a result of that work, or that was initiated with this particular Changemaker, we went from having less than 25% of our leaders being women to over 40% in a couple of years. And so that combination of the vision and also the ability to say, let me actually put together a strategy that's going to work is a rare and powerful combination.
Thank you for sharing that. I wish we were on the Zoom meeting because you can do the little clap emoji. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So a couple of you have touched on some topics that I want to kind of unpack. Anna, you talked a little bit about mentoring, coaching, and sponsoring. One of the change makers that you wanted to highlight, became kind of all of them, all in one person. And kind of just to unpack that. So in terms of, getting some feedback from our alumni, they have different needs, right? Like sometimes they need a mentor that can help them get them to a professional path that they want to be in. Or once they're in, they are looking for someone to sponsor them and kind of push them and actually advocate for them. And then there's this mentoring relationship, right? But there's this kind of, we want to, this relationship, mentee, mentor, coach, student, it's a positive relationship for both. Can anyone share some thoughts on kind of how that plays out in the workplace? Are there any resources that you all have put in place? And to our alumni, what, as just being graduated, you're the class of 2020. As you head into the workforce, where do you see your needs, right? Is it a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor? And so I'll start off first with our alumni. Where do you see your needs going? Mentor, coach, or sponsor? Or all three? And let's see. So I'll kick it off to Jennifer.
At this moment, I would consider a mentor because I am struggling to figure out which part of public health I want to work in the future, because I know I do want to pursue a master's in public health, but right now I do want to jump into the workforce, and it's kind of difficult to navigate that at the moment with the pandemic and just with the job shortage. And for me, just finding things that I'm interested in with the guidance of a mentor would be very helpful, and for them to let me know about different opportunities that there is out there based on what experience I already have and the education that I've gotten through the bachelor's that I did at UC Davis. I did psychology and Chicano studies. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, I think that is what I'm seeking. I'm someone that can assist me in any way and connect me with other people that are working in public health or behavioral health.
Okay, 10,000 Degrees Network. We have your antennas out. We need mentors in the public health field. Stephanie, where are you in this kind of search?
Yeah, I think all three, to be honest, would be very helpful for varying reasons. I think, as Jennifer mentioned, the network gap is definitely something I'm facing as well. But, once I do get to the role I want to be at, let's say it's marketing. When I was at Autodesk and McKesson, I learned that marketing is very wide. It's not just one role. It can go into content, operations, tech, and long after that. And I didn't even know so many different types of titles existed in marketing and how different skills are needed to be in each role. And I think that's when, a coach or a sponsor is needed. A mentor is needed to bridge the gap, but I think a coach or a sponsor is needed to get to that specific niche field that, one day I hope to discover which one is for me. Because, at McKesson, I thought content marketing was something I was really interested in corp comms. at Autodesk, we learned about go-to-market and account-based marketing. Didn't even know what that existed. But I think, to say short, as a new grad, you just learn that there's so many things out there. And, I think all three different types of people do play a role to help, a new grad succeed. And I'm really glad to be able to share that here.
And to our fellow panelists, let's weave in one of the questions from the audience. And thinking about a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor, whichever one you want to share, what was the best piece of advice that they gave you? Have it be, professional or academic. Does anyone want to share the best advice they got from a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor?
I'll share. So it's advice it's going to sound very cliche, but it rings true, and I think it especially rings so true right now in this moment. Very early on in my career, there was a woman who was the head of HR at Goldman Sachs. Her name was Edith Cooper, and she was listening to me complain about something one day, and she just looked at me and she said, "You need to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, I get that you're going to be the only person of color in this room. I understand you're going to be the only one sometimes walking into these rooms. And you've got to figure out a way to just understand that anxiety of sometimes being the first or the only is one of the things that you're going to continuously experience throughout your career. And so if you kind of keep that in your mindset for the rest of your career, no matter what you're faced with and no matter what those challenges are, you'll know that you can find comfort in the discomfort and be able to use that to continue to use your voice in order to make change. And so it's something that stays with me, and especially over the events of the last few months. Sometimes I'm the only person of color or the only woman in a room that has to be able to get comfortable being an advocate and a voice. And so I hear her in my head, even though I was an associate at the time when she said it to me. But it's something that I keep kind of on a post-it on my desk to remind me to not be afraid to speak up.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone want to kind of react or want to share about the best piece of advice a mentor, a coach, or a sponsor has shared with them?
I can. This is Deirdre. One of the things that my mentor said to me early on was to practice in safe places. So if you're trying to learn a new skill or flex a new muscle, oftentimes there are groups in your organization or in your corporate space that will allow you to volunteer and participate in a way that helps you learn and understand how you react in certain situations, and you can get the feedback that you need and the support, more importantly, that you need in those spaces, and not have it negatively impact sort of the course of your corporate life while you're learning and building on these skills. So I would say pursue his coaching to me, and his gift to me at that point in time was, pursue your passion and use community service via these organizations, these structured organizations and these companies that you work in, to help you understand what you need to do and how you need to do it. And it is a safe space to learn those important lessons.
Thank you for sharing that. I think, when we were kind of chatting with all the panelists and how we want to kind of frame the conversation, one thing came up, right? That we are, we all navigate different spaces, whether it's corporate, government, nonprofit, but we all, have this intersection of BIPOC, gender, sexual orientation. There's all these intersections, and we've all navigated them differently. I know that, I know some of you have shared about some tips on being, the only person of color, the only woman in the table, or the only X at the table. Does anyone want to share about their experience navigating, whether it's, college or the professional space, as, carrying your whole identity and bringing it there? And I want to share about your experience in kind of navigating that.
Chime in. So this is Daniela. This is something that is like very near and dear to my heart because, very often, like having worked in tech, but also even in some nonprofit spaces, being the only one. And I think the key, I don't know if this is advice, but I think it's something that has served me well. And I've come to learn, like, I think everything in life is a test and you learn from it. And one thing is just showing up and being like thinking about the impact I want to have, like who do I want to be in this moment and why is that important, right? So do I want to show up as somebody who is strong and in command, or do I want to show up as somebody who's very vulnerable and honest? And I think what you find, or what my experience has been, is like, you know, birds of a feather flock together, and you start to kind of build those connections. And as you start to kind of have a brand as somebody who does those things, people who have those similar interests, or who are inspired, or who just want to feel connected because they feel that way too, or because they have had this similar experience, you form connections and community. And I think that that's one of the most important things you can do in any workspace, where you might not feel like you have, I mean, to the earlier point, you need to have a safe space to go and to test things out and to have a sounding board. And so how that's kind of shown up for me at LinkedIn as a leader of an employee resource group is creating more of those spaces for other people to find that with each other. Maybe often they're the only, you know, Latino in engineering, or maybe they're the only parent, or maybe there's always something. And so finding ways to create that connection, whether that's a coffee chat, whether that is, you know, sending a random email to somebody you may not know. I think one of the key things is putting yourself out there. And that's something that, you know, my father, he grew up in the South Bronx. Like, his story is kind of bananas, but he made it all the way through, like, collecting recycling cans to pay for school supplies to becoming a doctor. And that was something he instilled in me very early on, is you can't be scared to put yourself out there, because how else will people see you? How else will they know you? And so it is very scary being vulnerable, but I think there's so much benefit that comes out of that. And so I think that's my advice to anybody who's like, how do I figure out this like big old world of a new company or a new organization you're a part of? It's putting yourself out there and showing up as who you are. Because that's your special sauce. That's your special secret sauce that nobody else has.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think it brings in, you know, a lot. And I think over the last 5 months, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging either has become the top priority, or is one of the priorities of an organization or a business or of government or the public sector. How do your, or if anyone wants to share about what your company thinks about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and how did it become a priority? Does anyone want to start off with that question?
I'm happy to chime in on that. So as a community bank, you know, we have understood that it's important to have a diverse workforce, and we've always had that. But the past couple of months has certainly heightened the awareness of our executives as to what is happening. And so it's great to be able to work with folks from different backgrounds, because it adds so much of a competitive advantage in the workforce, in the workplace. And so, but passions really started to kind of become more aware in the workplace setting. People were having dialogue, were having conversations about what was happening in the media, in the streets, what we know, racial injustice. And so our executives said, we need to be on the right side of history. So clearly, we need to make sure we create a safe place for everybody to talk. And so we started to host these calls, you know, for 30 minutes or so for whoever, anybody that wanted to join in and have a safe place to talk about what was going on. And our executives were not participating in those calls because they felt that they didn't want to put themselves out there, and they wanted to make sure that people had an open line of communication. And so I was directing those conversations, and it was interesting to hear a lot of the conversations that were taking place and what folks really wanted to do about it. And so because of that, now we have 6 initiatives that we're looking to fulfill this year to help meet that diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect of our company, and to change policy. And we've created the board of directors to implement changes. And we want our board to be behind us, which they are, fortunately. But this all came from understanding that just because someone is not speaking up doesn't mean that they don't have a voice. And how do you foster a really good, inclusive environment to be able to get them to open up and participate? And it's great to know that we have a lot of folks that have raised their hand that are interested in doing something. What that might be, you know, we'll see what that looks like throughout the year. But there's no loss of folks wanting to hop on in some way or another.
Thank you for that. Thomas, I know that you do a lot of work in this sphere. Is there something that you'd like to share about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. So building on what Victor shared, which I think is spot on, I think there is in recent months in particular, I think companies are kind of awakening to one kind of an obligation that they feel. Another thing I would add, though, that I think is really at the center of many companies' kind of renewed focus here, and it's very much at the center of LinkedIn's focus on diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and equity more broadly, is we have a belief that we will not be successful in achieving our business goals if we don't get this right. And I think that is organizations that kind of ground in that belief are more successful in their work in this area. And so for LinkedIn specifically, we are a professional network, and our vision as an organization is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And so, 10 years ago, that basically looks like creating economic opportunity for tech people that worked in Silicon Valley and were third-degree connections of Reid Hoffman, who founded the company. Now, if we're going to be successful in achieving this vision, we need to understand what are the structural barriers to economic opportunity that are preventing certain groups of the population from achieving economic opportunity or achieving at the same level. One of which, for example, that is very top of mind right now is structural racism. And so we think of that as a business imperative to achieve our vision as a company. The sort of corollary to that is we don't think we'll be successful in doing that if our organization is not diverse. And I think a lot of tech companies, and this is not by any means unique to tech, it's just a little bit of my personal lens, are feeling that in a very acute way. And as a result, there is a tremendous desire to figure out how we can become more welcoming organizations to people who are underrepresented in tech, people of color, women in technical roles in particular. And so there's a belief that if we don't figure out how to do that effectively, we are not going to be successful in achieving our business goals, and that's a big problem for everyone in leadership. So it's been I think, a very encouraging evolution to see it shift from sort of a thing that some people are interested in because they're personally interested to a business imperative.
Thank you for that. And we'll take a question from the audience. And one of them is, what are some small steps that people who are watching can take to make a positive difference for others at work? And this will be our last question from the panel, from the audience, and then we'll transition over to closing thoughts. But what are some small steps that we can all do to make positive change at work?
So, and at TPG, one of the, in terms of our response to racial justice, one of the things that we also did were host a series of roundtables. And in terms of some of the kind of just practical tips and tricks that we gave to people, we really wanted people to, again, get comfortable finding their voice. And so a lot of times you won't necessarily have, the perfect set of diversity in a room. And so we need people who are in those rooms making those decisions to be the active voice and participants. And so, there's a slogan in New York City, if you see something, say something. And so we have asked people to be more vocal, and whether that's they feel uncomfortable in the moment flagging it in a particular setting, to come to us in terms of kind of HR and helping in that mindset, or senior leadership, or just, again, asking the question in a different way. Did we look at a diverse slate of candidates? I know we want to hire this person, but what did the actual slate look like? If we can get everybody to just ask one more question, that'll help a tremendous amount in terms of provoking different conversations and hopefully a longer term pipeline change. And that's our goal at TPG.
Panelists.
I think that's incredibly powerful. If I could just add, sorry, Spade, if we're out of time. Just one thing to add to that, because I think that is just spot on. If you're in the audience and you're like me and you find yourself in a position where you may not be the one and only, and you may be overrepresented in your office or in your area, I think exactly what Anna was saying is right on. And one thing I would just add to that is educate yourself on the dynamics that are at play in workforces. And think about what are some of the blind spots that you might have. What are the blind spots that you have? Because we all have them. We talked about mentorship and sponsorship. I think Jennifer and Stephanie had great thoughts on that. One example is everybody is sponsoring somebody. And you may not actually know that you're sponsoring somebody, but everybody's speaking up about somebody favorably. And as human beings, we often tend to naturally be inclined to connect with people who are similar to us. And so think about who within your organization are you mentoring? Who within your organization are you sponsoring? Who are you hiring? Who are you interviewing? And are you falling victim to that like me bias? And unconsciously, maybe you're sponsoring more people that had the same background as you, went to the same school as you, look like you, and think about how can you interrupt those biases by learning about them and then thinking about them proactively.
Thank you for sharing that. We'll go ahead and start transitioning over to our closing thoughts from the panel. And we want to leave with a piece of experience, feedback, an event that really changed you, that is, or another change maker in your life. I'll start off with kind of, or if you just want to do another closing thought, that's also fine. And I'll start off, Thomas, I think I'll start off with you since you just kind of transitioned out of the last question. And then from there, we'll go to Deirdre.
Sure. So one thing I was reflecting on just preparing for this conversation is the idea of putting your aspirations and your intentions out there into the world. And one extremely fortuitous and life-changing change for me was moving into the diversity, inclusion, and belonging field 2 years ago as a person who had been known at LinkedIn as a career marketer, and it felt a little bit unusual for people. And the reason that I was able to get this job is that I was talking a lot about diversity and inclusion, and I was also talking to my boss and other people about how I wanted to move into a role that was somehow equity focused. And I actually didn't know what that would look like. I felt actually kind of self-conscious and uncomfortable about, like, I didn't really know how my skills could help in that space, but I talked about it anyway. And because of that, somebody told somebody that I was interested in this field. And when a role opened up on this team that I actually didn't know about at the time, somebody mentioned my name and the team reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in this role? And so I say that because if somebody's early in their career or is just coming out of college, have a lot of conversations, and you have an asset at your disposal that might feel like a liability, which is you're new to the workforce. There's a lot of things that you don't know, and that might feel uncomfortable and scary, and certainly did for me early in my career. But you actually have this special asset where you can say, hey, I'm new to marketing. Like, could you tell me a little bit more? I've never done this before. And everybody totally understands that. And so putting your intentions out there and not being afraid to ask what might feel like a dumb question early on is something that you have sort of the unique opportunity and the unique window of time to be able to do early in your career.
Thank you for that.
You know, I'm nodding because everything Thomas said was true. And I was thinking the same thing, right? Ask questions and be courageous, right? Because what you will find is the people you are asking questions of, a lot of people just don't ask them those questions anymore, and they really are interested in your opinion as well. What you say to them has value too, and you may find that in those conversations, your mentor is there waiting for you, your coach is there waiting for you, your sponsor is there waiting for you. So you're there because you deserve to be there. So ask questions, right, and make sure you understand.
Thank you. Victor, how would you like to close off your time here with us today?
Yeah, I think about this often, and I think about my personal upbringing, and more specifically, a moment in time when after 20 years of making school buses, my father was laid off from his company, and we had to become resourceful. And at the time, so we were on my mother's wages, working maybe 15 hours a week, not much. And we would take these long trips down south of the border. And my parents would stock up on provisions, and we'd come back. And this is the way it was, to try to extend the dollar as much as possible. And why I mentioned that is because, we face a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities out there. And at times we may feel as if the world is against us. We're working so hard, but we're constantly getting beat down. And we really should understand that those challenges are put forward to us to be able to overcome and to be able to get ourselves in a position where we understand that there are others that potentially have it even worse off, have more challenges and more difficult challenges. When we talk about change makers today, so I asked the audience, you probably have change makers. We all talked about them today. But can you think of anyone that thinks of you as a change maker? And if not, that's okay. But why not? And how do you get yourself into that role of being a change maker? So your challenges might very well be that opportunity to help you create that mentorship of being able to help someone else and pull them up as well and help them so that the cycle continues. And so that's what I was thinking about in terms of my own experience. And I think this whole conversation about change makers and what it's all about. It's about helping each other out.
Yeah, I think we all have the ability. There's this saying that each one can reach one. And I think we all have that capacity to do that in our in our professional spaces. I do want to close off with our two alumni. So I'm going to hand it off to Ana and then to Daniela.
Yes. So very similar to Thomas and Deirdre, I think, but with maybe a slightly different spin. I once, early on in my career, had some disappointing news, and I think had felt always like I needed to figure everything out on my own. And so I basically got another job, figured out my plan, resigned from my firm without talking to anybody in my network. And it's actually my change maker, Anilu, who stepped in on the side and said, I think that you have a great career here and a great forward. We understand that you've put yourself into this box, and so you think that there's no help. But if you actually would step into your own power and your own worth, people are here and wanting to help you because they see something in you that maybe you don't quite see yet, but you're not just a number or a statistic. You're here for a reason. And her, one, believing in me, but then two, actually telling me to believe in myself is probably one of the most important career lessons I've ever learned. I ended up staying at the firm for another 5 years and had tremendous experience afterwards and was able to make change for others coming up behind me as well, because I found and tapped into my own worth. And so, especially if you're faced with images around you that are showing you that you may not be worthwhile or you are not of value, I hope that from today's session, you can hear us in saying that you are worthy. And so when you are worthy of things, you need to demand them and ask for them and work for them. And you will be pleasantly surprised, I hope, as you are entering the workforce, that so many people are around wanting those same things for you as well, and sometimes even more than you can dream of.
Thank you. Daniela.
Sorry, I was muted. There's just so much goodness here that I don't even know where to start. So I feel like I'm in the same vein. I'm going to give tactics as to some of the things that like Thomas mentioned, as well as Anna. I think I have two big things. The first thing I learned like early on in my career that has always served me well is people cannot read your mind. If you do not tell them, they will not know. So to Thomas's point about you have to tell them what your dreams and aspirations are and where you want to be, because otherwise people don't know and you're just sitting here swimming on your own. And then I think the second thing, having been someone who's like emailing people that I don't know and trying to do that hustle, is make it easy for people to say yes. Like tee it all up. Be like, this is what I want. This is how you can help me. Here are the things I've already considered. Like, what do you think? And you'd be surprised by just making it very easy for people to say yes. You get a lot more doors open for you than you would think. And so that requires a little bit of preparation, a little bit of planning, but that's why you have your people. That's why you have your mentors, your coaches, your family, your friends. So I think like really lean on that and recognize, to Anna's point, you're really not in it alone. So yeah, just make it easy for people to say yes, because you are awesome. You do have a lot of value no matter where you go. And it's all about helping people recognize that and seeing that for themselves.
Thank you. And I would like to close off the panel closing thoughts with our two alumni. Stephanie and Jennifer, what would you like to share with us as your closing thoughts, any reflections, or anything that you'd like to share with us as your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I can start off. So this experience was actually really recent. So last Friday, a sophomore in college, actually, LinkedIn messaged me for a chat, and I was really surprised, but I took on that call. And I didn't really know where that would lead me. She actually strategically stalked my profile and was really curious how I made different career transitions in different industries. And when I was talking to her through each story, she was so inspired and she left me off with that. She messaged 20 people and I was the first one to respond. And with that being said, that's an honor, but also kind of heartbreaking to hear. But prior to that experience, I thought that I'm a recent grad. What do I have to offer? I'm not a manager. I can't hire her. But that experience taught me that, big or small, we all have a role that we can play in being a change maker in someone's life in the D&I space, right? So it's amazing if you're a manager and you have, the chance to hire someone, you have the chance to, make policies, but you don't have to be a manager to play a role. Think about something that you're good at. I think for me, it was listening to stories. And I'll continue to listen to stories, but maybe your specialty is being a designer, or maybe you're the person that decides what to cater for lunch for your next meeting. Maybe you can decide to switch up the menu every time to make it more diverse. I don't know what it is, but I do know that from that experience, I thought I was just a student who didn't have much to offer. But from that, I learned that, small or big, everyone does have a role to play, and that's kind of what I wanted to leave it off for today.
Thank you. Wow. Jennifer.
So I was kind of thinking of what Deirdre was talking about, how you don't know when you're going to find that person that might be able to mentor or like sponsor you. And recently I was working as a student assistant for like an extension at UC Davis. And I was just talking around with my colleagues and trying to figure out like how they got to the team we're working with and like what their educational background is. And I found out that one of my colleagues also worked for the same lab that I had worked in my senior year. It was at the Mind Institute, which is like an autism research facility. And we learned that we had similar majors at UC Davis and that she has a master's in public health. And I was like, wow, like, okay, that's something I'm like interested in. And like, she's just right there working on the same team. I had no idea. And right there, we like knew we had like similar connections because she knew the supervisor from the lab that I was working with. And then also she was like connected to the team that I was already working with because I wasn't directly working with her before, but I met her through other people. And so just thinking about how, you never know where you're going to find that person that's going to be able to give you more advice. And for me, just to close this session is just for recent grads to communicate with anyone that you can, that that has similar interests as you. Like, don't be afraid to reach out because you never know if they can help you out in the future or if they can connect you with someone else.
Thank you, Jennifer. And to kind of wrap up our panel and give our thank yous, I'd like to ask our CEO, Kim Azuka, to come back online with us. She'll close out today. So Kim.
Spade, thank you. What an amazing panel that you put together for all of us tonight. And to all of our panelists, Anna and Daniela and Stephanie, Thomas, Jennifer, Deirdre, and Victor, you gave us all so much to really think about in such an important time and moment in our world. I really want to thank you for sharing with us how you are helping your workspaces really navigate the space around inclusion and creating a sense of belonging for everybody, because that is at the core of our work at 10,000 Degrees. And the other thing I'd like to add is all of our students, right, and all of our alums, they are change makers. So what kind of another thing that stands out for me, Anna, what you said earlier about blazing the trail for themselves and taking those behind them. So I just really want to thank you for being those professionals in your workspaces who are blazing that trail to really create a much more just and equitable, inclusive environment. So thank you for doing this important work. I also want to thank all of our sponsors tonight who are, because of you, the Changemaker event series is happening, as you can see, in really great ways and inspiring ways. I want to give special thanks to both TPG and Redwood Credit Union for being our lead sponsors, and a very special thanks to both Julie and Michael Wickham for being our event chairs this year, and to our entire event committee for making all of this possible. And to all of you for joining us. I know that you're taking a lot out of this panel tonight. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for giving all of our students such incredible opportunities As I mentioned before, they need us now more than ever, and we are definitely going to be here for them, thanks to all of you. Again, if you'd like to contribute a gift today or tomorrow, you can do so by just texting change to 24365. And we would love for you to honor one of the change makers in your life who helped you, who said, you know, one of the panelists said earlier, just a few moments ago, something about you are enough and we believe in you. And that's sometimes all it takes. So if you'd like to honor a change maker, you can do so by making a contribution today. You'll all have more opportunities to hear from alums and students on September 24th when we celebrate all of you and all of our change makers at our San Francisco Change Makers Celebration. Yes, it's a virtual event this year, and we hope to be back in person next year. So on that note, thank you all for being change makers and for helping us create a much more just and equitable world. Thank you.